everyone. I'm Anthony Durgans. I'm the research officer of Lobby Group, and so I'm conducting an interview with the CEO of the organization, Rebecca Ayers. And so this interview is mainly to help people know what Lobby Group is and what we're about. Okay, so I'm gonna have a series of questions, and so my first question to you, Rebecca, is what is the ADU?
The ADU is a nonprofit organization that's managed by Lobby Group. It's an acronym. It stands for the Anti-Defamation Union. Basically, it's designed to protect the rights of Black people across the diaspora, but specifically we're starting with the United States because that's where our headquarters is located, but the goal is to broaden that scope and go international as well. We fight anti-Kemetism, which is basically anything that leads itself toward the systematic destruction of Black African people of descent, Blacks, So what we do is we want to offer legal protection to address the wide range of legal issues that Blacks may face. This may include stereotyping, like if there's material out there that is defaming the Black race in general and giving us a bad name as a people, and then in turn people mistreat us as a result of that, defamation, then that's something that we address. Also, we do address issues at the individual level, where we protect people who are experiencing discrimination in the workplace or at school, or they're being harassed and experiencing hate crimes, etc.
All right, I see. So then, how does Lobby Group, in what way do they actually help Black people?
Well, we're trying to raise funds so that we can have a team of attorneys that are in each state. We're trying to get 50 attorneys, one for each state. And people pay a monthly membership fee in exchange for these legal services. We have like a tier. We go by your income range. Like for people who make like $100,000 and up, their membership fee would be $100. People who make $50,000 and under, it would be respectively $50 or $25 a month. Or if you make under $25,000 per year, then you would pay what you can, because it's difficult for Blacks to get legal representation in this country. And it's even more difficult to find a Black legal professional who's willing to take on your case, because a lot of times professionals, particularly in the legal field, are threatened against addressing controversial issues. So what the ADU would do is give people that guarantee. It's not set up like you're a typical law firm where you pay a retainer's deposit or whatever. We're actually hoping that we'll have a huge number of subscribers and members to support the organization.
I see. So, as a political scientist, how does the Lobby Group? What are the main issues that are facing Black people today in America?
2 words: slavery and depopulation, or you could say population control. All the issues that Blacks are experiencing in this country, namely the United States and also in the world too, is a symptom of an agenda to re-enslave the Blacks. And so what we're trying to do as a legal organization is provide that support to leverage against that agenda for the Black people, because I noticed that I didn't necessarily see too many Black organizations, or any for that matter, address slavery specifically with practical steps as to how to absolve it. When people march, they're not marching to end that clause that's on the 13th Amendment. When people are marching, they're not talking about MK Ultra or psychiatric reprisal or the King Alfred Plan. A lot of people put those types of programs that are designed for Black American destruction in this country in the category of conspiracy theory, but time and again, when I do research, I find out that that these things are actually being implemented step by step in phases.
Right.
So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to prevent a whole population of people, a whole civilization of people from being enslaved and from being depopulated.
Okay. So, what sets the ADU apart from other African American organizations like the NAACP or the Black Caucus organization?
Okay, those organizations, well, generally speaking, they tend to not be comprised of political scientists, or even if they are, they're not following political science principles. And when you're studying political science and you're implementing politics, you have to recognize that you have to move beyond ideologies. You need to practice political realism. We call this realpolitik in political science, where you're not using some glittering ideology to gloss over issues and promote something that appears good in word but not necessarily reasonable in fact. Additionally, we're different as an organization because we address issues that they're not addressing. Thirdly, we also know the difference between human rights and civil rights. See, when our people talk about civil rights, they're talking about criminal justice reform, environmental protection, education, more jobs, etc., black businesses, etc. However, those issues don't address the underlying politics that keep us from upward mobility. And again, that would be slavery. See, they suppress our vote, so we won't vote. So we can't vote. Why? Because citizens vote, non-citizens can't vote. So if you find yourself in a position where the rights that you have as a citizen are being taken away from you, then you're going through the processes of denaturalization, where you're no longer a citizen. And we know in this country, Black Americans were originally slaves in this country, considered slaves. And the majority of the slaves in the prison houses in modern day slavery practice now are blacks.
Right. So many people might be wondering, how is the lobby group funded?
Oh, funded? Well, right now we are funded out of pocket expense. I pay, for the company to go forward. We're trying to establish partnerships with other organizations so that we can provide political consulting services to, those organizations you meant like the NAACP or the Congressional Black Caucus, because, or even the Nation of Islam, etc., Urban League, etc., because we're too disorganized as a people.
Yes.
And you can't have the problems that we have and be that disorganized and expect to survive under normal and satisfactory conditions.
Right.
And what we want to do is we're really doing this for the people because no one is providing that support. We attend lectures, we attend annual events, but then we go back home and experience the same mess, so to speak. We have the same problems. In Africa, before colonization, when we had a community, everyone was supported. We made sure that everyone was supported. And even, I heard from my mom when she was a little girl growing up in, Alabama, she was talking about how her community made sure that everyone was, safe,
Yes,
that people had their needs met. But I don't necessarily see any organization trying to get people's needs met in a practical way without giving them some ideology.
Right. Okay, so now this brings me to my last question. Are you guys having any events this year?
Yes, we will be having 2 events. One event is Politics of Dating, which basically is talking about how we can use, political science theory to understand relationships, not just with romantic relationships, but also with platonic relationships. And it's a good way to get people started in understanding political science, to give a more appreciation for political studies, because a lot of people associate politics with voting and election season or whatnot, but really politics is about control, because power is about control. Politics is a study of power, relationships. And so in a power relationship, someone has control. And it's just like with our social relationships with everyday people, like our mom or our siblings or a spouse or your boss. We're connected by so many different relationships, and someone's in control. Some relationships are balanced, where you kind of give and take, and other relationships are kind of like a slave driver and slave kind of relationship too. And we see this not only with people, but also with countries, amongst each other as well. And in political science, we recognize that political power is when you have control over a country or a particular area. And basically the goal of a political actor is to basically take courses of actions that maximize your interest. And what's your interest? Control, power. The reason why the civil rights movement turned out the way it did, where they can scale back all the things that our ancestors fought so hard for, is because we didn't have political power. We didn't have control necessarily over the conditions that imposed conditions of life that determined our destiny. When you have power, you can not only control your destiny, but also the destinies of those who would otherwise control your destiny.
Alright, and also because during that time, African Americans, because of segregation, they were more united and acted more collectively.
And also, we had support from the international community. Much of the international community still identified themselves as colored peoples.
Right.
And while you still have some, people who identify themselves as colored person, the political situation has changed, because now if you're born in Egypt and you're black, you can check white on your application. So something changed in politics, where race became more politicized in terms of geographic position, So it's very fascinating, but also people tend to fall into a lot of traps and snares and additional hardships when they don't understand power relationships, when they don't understand power. And that's why we also offer classes, like political science classes. I'll be teaching an introduction political science class. And we encourage people to, take the course so they can learn more about how power works.
I see. Okay,
Yes.
So thank you for answering all the questions, and that concludes our interview. And if you want to learn more, go to our website at www.lobigroup.llc.com. Thank you.